Hey guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing the third episode of the first season of Stargirl, otherwise titled Icicle. If you're seeing a trend with the episode titles, I believe the trend is real. Each and every one of these episodes so far, except for the pilot, seems to be titled after a character. The second episode last week was titled S.T.R.I.P.E, told us more about Pat Dugan. This week's episode is titled Icicle, and next week's episode, that's gonna be titled Wildcat, probably gonna be telling us some stuff about the original Wildcat, the one that we watched die on the premiere of the season, but it's also gonna be introducing us to the new Wildcat. Gonna be talking about that in detail later on. So it does seem that as of now and in the foreseeable future, we're going to be getting semi-character-centric episode, telling us more about each and every one of these characters, telling us more about their history, either in a narrative manner, just like Pat Dugan did with himself, or in some kind of a flashback manner, just like this episode did with Jordan McKent. Now, as I mentioned before, Jordan McKent on the series is a mix between Jordan McKent out of the comics and his son, Cameron McKent. So in the comics, Jordan McKent was a Captain Cold type character with a cold gun and whatnot, but on the other hand, his son Cameron did have the abilities, so more of a Killer Frost type character. Now the difference though between the two came from the fact that Dr. Jordan McKent did use the gun repeatedly until his genetics kind of mutated. Now, passing on these mutated genes to his son, had his son born as a metahuman, so this explains that part. Now, obviously, regardless of the deviations that we see over here with Jordan McKent's character out of the comics, Jordan McKent is actually a portrayal of Jordan McKent. Cameron McKent did appear at the beginning of the episode. He's that kid, that son, crying over the imminent death of his mother. Cameron McKent is the boy that the mother talks about, telling Jor or Jordan to continue, to go on, to keep going on with his mission, to make sure that he achieves the target, make this country safer for their kid. Now, even though it's never really easy to sympathize with a villain, to feel bad for a villain, there is a certain appeal to this first scene of the episode because you're watching it and you're thinking, okay, you know what, these people are bad, their mission is bad, their target is bad. However, though, looking at them, watching them, these people actually think they are in the right. They're not evil. They're doing something for the greater good. Once again, this is only in the back of their mind and in their own opinion. Now, I personally like being presented with this type of villains because they're not just doing it for greed, not for the money, not for power. They're doing it for a lot more. They're doing it for conviction, the wrong conviction, but they're doing it for conviction, which actually always makes these kind of villains the most dangerous ones. Think Malcolm Merlyn on Season 1 of Arrow, think Hydra in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. All of them were doing these things because at every twist and at every turn they thought everyone else around them was the villain and they were in the right. Again, that made them some of the most dangerous villains that the comic books have ever seen and that the comic book, movie, and television productions have ever seen as well. But okay though, we've got a little bit of an Easter egg over here because the name of Jor's wife in the comics happens to be Annie and not Christy. However though, the name Christy happens to be an Easter egg to two other characters in the comics, Dole Christie and James Christie, both grandkids of none other than Jor and Annie, with James here happening to be yet a third Icicle on the pages of the comics and one that used his grandfather's cold gun on the pages of the source material. Now, I did mention before that on the pages of the comics, the comic book version of William Zarick on the series, aka William Zard in the comics, did not really have a family, not one that we knew of. The politician part as well is also quite new, but obviously the whole family situation there, that serves a purpose that I'm going to be discussing closer to the end of this video. But for more than one reason, including the fact that he was big on the trailer, he is not dead yet, and the fact that he is still trying to communicate. I don't think Brainwave is a done deal yet, he's not a goner yet, he's gonna make it back on a future episode. Now there are two scenarios here that he's gonna totally forget about Courtney Whitmore. The trauma that he's faced, everything that he's gone through, the coma is gonna make him forget who Courtney Whitmore is. He's gonna know there's a Stargirl, but he will not remember what her identity is. Or, when he comes out of his coma, he is still gonna remember. He's gonna do that later in the events of the season, and that's what will temporarily tip the scales in the favor of the Injustice Society. Either way, it makes a lot of sense that they don't really all know her identity this early in the events of the season. Now, apparently last week we were under the impression that the Wizard is actually the leader of the Injustice Society. That was true to the comics. I think that was an Easter egg as well to the comics. However, though, from the conversation that we watched at the beginning of this episode, it does seem like the series is doing a few things differently, including the fact that Icicle is portrayed as the most ruthless of all of them. Icicle is actually more of a leader than the Wizard, ranks above them. That explains the part about the flashbacks at the beginning of the episode. You know, he is the one with the mission, the one with the big plans, and the one who's kind of vengeful against society. Now, in the conversation between Jordan and William, there are a lot of comic book parallels and Easter eggs because William did have a master, did have a teacher when it comes to magic. He did travel to Tibet, he did learn at the hands of a llama how to practice true magic. He used to rely on simple illusions and tricks. That's actually Easter egged with the scene with his son at the beginning of the episode, but he went there, he started learning, and he did learn all about black magic. He used black magic at the very end in order to kill his master. So yeah, the story told by Jordan on this episode, the portrait painted by him of William Zarick is very true to William Zard, you know, the William Zarick of the comics. Now, during the same conversation, we get a parallel to Arrow, to Malcolm Merlyn on Arrow, because, yeah, Icicle is pretty much a Malcolm Merlyn type of villain. He's the villain out for vengeance against the society that exposed his wife to toxins, the toxins that led to her getting sick and eventually dying. So yes, he is operating out of the realm of the law, he knows that, but he thinks he's in the right. He thinks that he's doing the right thing. He thinks in his own mind that he is saving the world, in his own sick way, but nonetheless saving the world. Now, one other thoughts that I had over here was that Stephen Sharp, aka the Gambler, was the actual leader. I mean, he was the one behind the scenes all this time. We haven't seen him in a fight before, even the one at the very beginning of the season against the Justice Society. However, though, he's not really the leader. He follows Icicle as well. Icicle is the leader of the entire team. But speaking of the Gambler, though, the Gambler does not really have any powers or abilities. The Gambler is obsessed and addicted to gambling. That's really his core ability. So what he uses on the pages of the comics are weapons inspired by cards, inspired by gambling. You know, weapons the looks of which are inspired by playing cards, by gambling machines, stuff that looks like it was pulled right out of a casino. Now, there are a few things that happen here, like back-to-back real quick, but all of them are probably going to have a certain impact on the future of the season. Barbara Whitmore has put herself on the radar of Jordan McKent. Courtney Whitmore seems to be in the process of making a new friend. That's Yolanda that she meets over here. Gonna talk about her at the end of this video as well. Courtney as well does have a crush on this kid in school, and it makes a lot of sense. She has a good moral compass. The kid at first does seem to have a good moral compass. She's in a new school, a new town, and she's got to make friends, and she's got to have her own crushes. However, though, that kid does happen to be none other than Cameron McKent. That's what we realize at the end of the episode. So yeah, another Icicle, another villain that might not be the villain of this season, but is definitely a future villain and foe of Stargirl and S.T.R.I.P.E. But there's also the frosty star on the ground that Courtney finds on her way home from school. That's Jordan McKent sending her a message. You know, I'm here, I know you're here as well, and I'm gonna get you, or even better, I'm going to lure you out of hiding. Now, I gotta say, I always thought the character of Mike Dugan was gonna be very minor, which he is, by the way. Quite minor compared to everyone else in the story arc, but however, he is acting like quite the comic relief. The casting of the actor in terms of resemblance to Luke Wilson is pretty good as well, because there is the striking resemblance, but there's also the striking resemblance with actor Ray Romano. The name of the actor is Trey Romano. There's nothing online that proves that he is related to him, his son for example, but nonetheless I was just wondering, so yeah, that's a random comment there. But okay though, the showdown between Stargirl and S.T.R.I.P.E. on one end and Icicle on the other end, that was pretty quick. And even though it does seem like it ended in favor of Stargirl and S.T.R.I.P.E., I don't think it did end in favor of them. I do think that they just got lucky, that they just had a little bit of an advantage at that point, and that Icicle now knows he's facing two enemies. He knows the power of those enemies, and that next time he's got to make sure he's not easily defeatable. There's of course the little bit of teen silliness in Courtney's thinking that she could do it all, that she could win it all, and that she could defeat any enemy. That's not really how it's gonna work, that's not really how it works. But yeah though, that's understandable given her age. That's definitely part of her comic book character as well. She does always rush into trouble, jump in head first throughout these Stars and Stripe issues, so that's pretty much a comic book Easter egg in and out of itself. Now while the superhero supervillain bit was over at this point, there's still more for Icicle to do. Icicle wants to save himself. Let's freeze that bridge and make sure that school bus crashes anywhere but in my face. Icicle wants to make sure that Zarick the wizard is on his side. Let's give him a taste of that vengefulness against society that I have within by leading his son to his death. Now there is a little bit of a turning point that you could expect in advance. You could expect that the wizard is at some point going to turn against Icicle. But one of the most beautiful comic book parallels / Easter eggs is the Justice Society of America headquarters, close to the end of the episode. That was pretty good. It does seem like Pat restored a lot of things, got back a lot of things, including the Flash helmet. That's why it is right back in place within the Justice Society headquarters. The writing on the table, Justice Society of America, that's pretty true to the comics. The table had the Justice Society of America written all over it. Hootie is the owl that we meet in there, Dr. Midnight's owl, and even though the owl was a pet of Charles McNider's, it wasn't just a pet. So you could think of the owl as a sidekick as well. He used to scout locations in advance for Dr. Midnight before he himself would advance to them. Now there's a lot of talk about Wildcat as they walk in, Ted Grant, and we know next week's episode is titled Wildcat, so that's kind of the Easter egg to what is coming, what we're gonna watch on next week's episode. The entire talk about Dr. Midnight, him not coming back, the talk about the owl waiting for him, not knowing that he's been dead for years. That's all talk for the Injustice Society is so powerful. They have killed experienced superheroes and we don't stand a chance. But there is also the opposing talk. Why not have help? Why not form a new Justice Society? That's in a nutshell what she's saying over there. And in fact, we know that it is possible. There is possibly another Hourman, Rick Tyler, aka the second Hourman in the comics, and son to the first Hourman, aka Rex Tyler. There are two other possible Dr. Midnights, and there's already one of them on the series, aka Beth Chapel, aka that kid at school with Courtney. There's a second Brainwave, son to the first Brainwave, that actually airs on the pages of the comics on this side of good, and we've met him on the series. A lot of people argued that the green light that we watched on the first episode wasn't really a Green Lantern green light, but however we do see that big Alan Scott Green Lantern photo or banner in the Justice Society headquarters, so yeah, that was a Green Lantern light. That's a confirmation right there. One villain down a few to go, because I wouldn't say Brainwave is completely down yet. However, William Zarick is down, and obviously Icicle did not plan for this to happen. His initial objective was probably to bring Zarick to his side, but it ended up backfiring. Zarick ended up realizing it was him. He ended up going all the way up to him to confront him. He got so close though, and that led to his death. I do want to believe, though, that this is not the end for the wizard, because that would be just such a waste of a villain. But we're going to have to wait to find out, because they might as well be planning to introduce a second wizard over the course of the upcoming episodes. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, while I'd say that the close-up at the end of the episode on William Zarick's wife was probably for dramatic effect, sadness and whatnot, it is possible that the close-up was about more than that. It is possible that she's gonna play a bigger role, air on one of the two sides, either the side of good or the side of evil. I'm thinking she's gonna be used by Icicle, like he's gonna get closer to her, make her feel that she needs to help him achieve what he's set to achieve. But yeah though, that final scene of the episode, it is confirming that we're getting a second version of the Justice Society of America, and the one that's going to be responsible for the recruitment of the members of said Justice Society, that is going to be Courtney. So we're also most probably going to end up visiting the headquarters of the Justice Society and repeatedly over the course of the rest of the season. So at the very least, Beth Chapel is coming through as none other than Dr. Midnight and Yolanda Montes as Wildcat. Yolanda is the girl that was being bullied at school on this episode. So while I expect we're gonna get some Wildcat flashbacks on next week's episode, I also expect that the episode is gonna focus heavily on none other than Yolanda. Finally though, I'd say that this episode actually beat the first two. It is an improvement. I like the character of Icicle. I like him more as a villain than I liked both Brainwave and the Wizard. I mean, the Wizard did not get enough time to be a villain so far, except for those couple of moments at the very beginning of the premiere. I'd also give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. Lots of Easter eggs, so much fun to watch, the acting is spectacular. Unfortunately, the only actress I'm not really comfortable with so far is the one in the lead, so Stargirl, Courtney Whitmore. I think the casting could have been a lot better. However though, I'm not gonna judge so early and I'm gonna wait, because this so far does beat any of the other DC TV shows on the CW. With that said though, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode, what you thought of the Easter eggs on this episode. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Stargirl or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into this video, stay safe, and have a great day.